Hi everybody. It's been a while since I've talked to you guys and I miss you a lot. And after a few days now, you're probably getting a little bored. So I'm going to share with you one of my favorite stories. It's called Dan by Jeff Mallett. And it's one of my favorites. I read it so many times it kind of fell apart on me. So I've scanned it in here for you guys to share with you. But it's about a boy who uses his imagination when he gets bored. Unfortunately, Dan, when he's using his imagination and people say, Dan, what are you doing? He says, I don't know, because it's too embarrassing to tell people what he was imagining. But use your imagination during these days you're at home. Have a lot of fun, but don't use it to get in trouble like Dan does. Let's begin. Dangerous Dan by Jeff Mallett. Dangerous Dan Adventure Man was bright and bold and brave. Whatever a kid could do, he did, except, perhaps, behave. Dangerous Dan took off his plan for school one windy day until a gust came up and thrust his lunch and books away. And as papers flew, and food did too, Dan clutched his notebook tight. The cover things spread out like wings, and Dan was, gasp in flight. I love Jeff Mallett's pictures. He uses linear perspective. Look how big that banana is. And you can tell that the papers, as they get smaller, are further away. The notebook soared with Dan aboard above the treetops' reaches. He gave a flock of birds a shock and giggled at their screeches. He terrorized the friendly skies. He buzzed a jumbo jet. The captain freaked and people shrieked and squealed and got upset. Look out the front window, the pilot's pointing at Dan's feet going by. You can always pause this video and look at the pictures better there past it. He glided where the country air hung softly on the greenery. Past woods and bogs and deer and frogs, he whistled through the scenery. From there Dan shot above the hot, cracked sidewalks of the city. It looked so grim and gray to him, yet strangely rather pretty. Look at this great picture. He's way above the sidewalk. He can look down and see the people, and they look so small. That bird sitting above him. The wind died down just outside town. Dan crashed and burned and flipped. He bonked his nose and tore his clothes, then off to school he skipped. And as he trotted into class, his teacher dropped her chalk and asked, but look at him. He ripped his clothes. Poor guy's falling down. He's walking into class. But he wasn't really flying. That was all in his imagination. But he really did bonk his nose. And the teacher asked, where in the world have you been, young man? I don't know, said Dangerous Dan. He couldn't tell her he flew to school with his notebook, because he knew it didn't really happen. But what a great imagination. Dangerous Dan learned lots, then ran back home and out to play. But one wrong turn past one long fern, and Dan had lost his way. See the cat in the bush? He searched around and thought he'd found his way back to his lawn. Then he saw a bird that's only heard of near the Amazon. The Amazon, he cried, hold on. We studied that in school with jaguars and big snakes and spiders. Cool. Wonder how that jaguar showed up in his imagination. Look at all the cool stuff. Trees like towers draped with flowers stretched up to the skies, where monkeys hung and swung among the birds and butterflies. But on the ground a problem wound itself around Dan's feet. Oh no! Was he about to be an anaconda tree? Remember, anacondas are squeezer snakes, not poisonous. See that anteater? But Dan had no intention, though, of being squished and eaten. That snake got whacked and kicked and smacked and elbowed, punched and beaten. Now the jungle viewed this mortal feud with fear, respect, and awe, until a wily crocodile declared the match a draw. Remember, there's a big snake, a crocodile. Dan made his break from croc and snake. He ran and flailed and hopped and climbed and leaped and swam and creeped and walked until he dropped. And as he lay there, nearly dead, a native rescued him and said, "What happened to my hose, young man?" I don't know, said Dangerous Dan. What do you think? Who was the native? What was the anaconda? And look at the crocodile. Dangerous Dan had dinner, was washing dishes when he reached too far for a jelly jar and lost his balance. Then, remember, he didn't really fall into the dishes, but in his imagination. He belly flopped and splashed and dropped into a deep blue world with dinnerware piled everywhere as bubbles popped and swirled. With a kick and a splash, he swam off in a flash to look closer at what he'd found. He made several passes through spoons, plates, and glasses, exploring and goofing around. He had great gobs of fun, but he still wasn't done with his job, so he thought of a plan. I can wash every dish and still swim like a fish, said the quick-thinking Dangerous Dan. So, with his shirt as a mop, he swam up to the top of a plate, then swooshed down the rim. Then he did it again till the proud moment when it looked shiny and spotless to him. He had to do the glasses too, which made the world look weird. The pan and pot were gross, but not as bad as he had feared. Some things weren't quite the lovely sight they might have been or could have, like bits of meat that he didn't eat and vegetables that he should have. Look how weird he looks through that glass. But Dan was tough, and soon enough he finished all of it. Then he dove once more to the ocean floor and pulled the plug and quit. I love that picture. Even the bubbles have a little spiral to it, like when the drain's going down. And as he stood there, smiling proudly, Mom came in complaining loudly. What's the question? "What's this big wet mess, young man?" And of course Dan says, "I don't know," said Dangerous Dan. He's in the sink. Dangerous Dan, Adventure Man, reviewed his busy day. His folks did too, and as folks do, reacted with dismay. "To bed," they said, and off he sped. His day was done. A pity. He changed and brushed and washed and flushed and went to bed. Or did he? And when his parents come up to see why he's jumping around on the bed, they're going to say, "What are you doing, Dan?" And Dan's going to say, "I don't know." So, as we think about the story and we think about our days at home, use your imagination. Think about incredible adventures. Do fun things. Build forts out of the cushions. Imagine you're on big adventures. But share it with your parents. So when they say, "What are you doing?" you can tell them instead of saying, "I don't know." I hope you enjoy. Let me know some of the adventures you have in your imagination. Have a great, great day. Oh, I should say, make it a great day or not. The choice is yours.